Some people within the comics community, creators, publishers, they'll make this statement that comics are no longer relevant for our times. That certain characters, certain things, that even superhero cape books are more a product of the 80s and the 90s, and they're on the decline. That these concepts just don't really work anymore. Is that true? Well, I mean, if you've listened to my channel long enough, you know I think that it is not true, or you could probably guess. But what elements of truth are there in that statement? Let's talk about that. Hey everybody, this is Perch. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so, or invite a friend. It's always wonderful to get some other people in here because you guys bring wonderful ideas. You bring show topics and concepts, and it makes my job a lot easier when you pick the things you want me to talk about. I don't mean it that way, but yeah, you get the idea. Um, this is one of those things that comes up in little waves. So about 10 years ago, there was this whole kind of our superhero books a thing of the past. And it was really in relation to kind of the popularity of Scott Pilgrim and kind of indie books coming along and some of the image books getting more popular, The Walking Dead. And it was, our superhero books just old fashioned? Or has their time come as a genre? Do they make any sense anymore? And you'll see this from time to time with characters like, Marvel was prior to the movies going around how, well, maybe Iron Man is kind of an outdated concept. Maybe Captain America is an outdated concept. Maybe it no longer makes sense anymore. DC has said the same about Shazam and a couple other characters like that. I remember The Flash, for whatever reason, was like, the Flash is kind of an old, outdated concept. In the 90s, Superman, before the death of Superman, is like, well, one of the reasons why we did that is the concept of Superman as a superhero is kind of outdated. And so it needs to be evolved, changed, or maybe just retired. And uh, again, I've talked about different sides of this, so it's probably no surprise to you that I don't agree with that topic at all. And I'm betting most of the people on this channel don't either. I think for me, it becomes a weird excuse to cover up bad storytelling. I think bad storytelling certainly goes out of style, and I think arguably bad storytelling was never in style. I think poorly produced comics are things that are never a good idea, but at different times in our history, uh, there's been like the '90s had a lot of kind of junky comics, and same thing with the mid 2000s. There's been times when there's been you can slap extreme on it, and Wolverine's going to do something, and you can have a C or D level artist, and you just people would buy it because it has Wolverine on it. And the comic industry, I think, got away with that at various eras, where you get a company, or you get a concept, you get a character. It's so popular that they'll just sell, regardless of whether it's good or not. They'll just sell, and it's always short lived. It never lasts for very long. And what always happens in these arcs is that kind of three-quarters of the way through it, when oversaturation is hit, people are realized it. The publisher might be a little self-aware and start publishing things like, hey, we need some sales, so we'll slap Wolverine on this. There was a time when Marvel would do this with Wolverine and with Cable, of all people, and Deadpool, where they're like, time for a sales boost. Here's Deadpool. And you're like, you know what? If you know enough to make that joke, then you probably should know enough to not do it. Like you are killing the golden calf. It is not. This is not going to work if you keep overexposing things. But they do it anyway, and this become a comic tradition in other fields too. And I think those things go out of style, absolutely. And it's more just you have a flash in the pan kind of popular character, and then you just milk it for all it's worth. And sometimes you get creators. I know Rob Liefeld will make comments around how Deadpool is one of the most popular characters of all time and always will be. And it's like, well, no, not always. Every character will have peaks of popularity. Now, Deadpool is going to be more popular than, say, Prodigy, or Spider-Ham. Deadpool will sell more books, even if it's been overexposed. But still, every character, every concept, everything has peaks of popularity and unpopularity. I mean, if you make 20 Deadpool books, then you're oversaturating the market, and then there's going to be less sales, and eventually, even your core Deadpool title will sell less. So the answer to that, the simple solution is don't overexpose things. Keep things simple. Maximize your brand, but then take a break from it. Or, don't pump out 20 different Deadpool comics. Pump out 4 and pump out what the market will bear. I mean, again, this isn't rocket science, but it eludes comics in a lot of places. But rather than people coming out and just saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't overexpose our popular characters to the point that they're not quite as popular anymore. Instead, it's like people want to generate controversy, so they'll start writing articles like "superhero books are dead." That's and not that's an overreaction and a silly one. I think a lot of concepts certainly can be done to death, but if it's a good story, it's a good story. You could take the most overexposed, whether it's Harley Quinn or Deadpool or The Walking Dead or whatever it happens to be at the time. You could take the most overexposed concept possible. If you put a good creative team on it, writer, artist, or both, and you have a good pitch, an interesting story, a compelling hook, then people will buy it. You will have no problem selling it. It will be popular. That's there's a lot of times where people will try and cheat success, or they'll try and basically they'll try and come out with a book and not they'll either skimp on the artist, or the writing is very derivative, or the hook is tired. You've seen this plot 80 times before, and then they seem surprised when the money doesn't roll in. Most people, generally speaking, most people can take a look at all the comics. You put them out every week on a table. You can compare them all fairly, and you can say this book's going to sell, this book is not. And you could, I mean, it's not as complicated. It's not like the stock market. It's much simpler than that. It's like, hey, here's a Batman book. Who's the writer? Oh, it's Scott Snyder. It's Tom King. It's somebody we recognize. Okay, that's going to sell more. Who's the artist? Oh, it's Jim Lee. Okay, that's going to sell a lot more. Great. On the other hand, if you put that same Batman book on the table, and the cover has Batman kind of relaxing on the couch, and the writer and artist are people you've never heard of, it's not going to sell as well. I mean, is this news to anyone? Probably not. But none of this is indicative of trends overall with comics. Granted, there are certain things that won't do as well today as they did in other regions. The whole, triple extreme kind of stuff. The let's give the guy shoulder pads and spikes and a skateboard with some lasers on it. That concept won't do as well in 2020 as it did in 1994. It's just that that's pop culture and just general trends. But overall, almost anything, with very few exceptions, can be overcome with just solid writing, a good story, and time and quality. That tends to trump all. There are no shortcuts to time and quality. We can pretend that this one indie concept is just going to sell well, and the actual talent or skill or quality of the product itself doesn't really matter, but it always does. Scott Pilgrim sold well because it was a unique hook. People hadn't seen it before. The art was solid. The story was engaging, and it worked. And it was marketed well, and success happened. There wasn't anything more secret than that. It wasn't tapping into some hitherto undiscovered group of genre of comics. Yes, it did sell that. It did say that if you have a concept that is strong and a story that is good, you can sell things that aren't superhero books. Yes, but Alan Moore had proved that for years. Lots of people have proved that for years. This isn't new information. What do you think? Do certain topics, certain specific things, just need to be retired, or do they die over time? And I'm not talking about like racist things like back in the 40s. You'd have this "let's go kill the Japanese" kind of comic books. Yeah, obviously that stuff's going to that neither ages well nor is relevant to today's marketplace. But I'm talking more broadly topics and genres. Are there anything like that? Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Like I said, subscribe. Would love to have you here on the channel, part of this community here. Follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch, and thanks for listening.